How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Infinite Sports. I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder. To recap week 8 in the NFL, also talk about my experience in Pittsburgh, watching the Packers Steelers game live in person, Jordan Love against Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers facing his former team for the first time since departing a few years ago. Of course, got traded to the Jets and then now is with the Pittsburgh Steelers, as they have now lost two straight. And we'll get into some of the other games as well over the weekend. But I did mainly want to talk about that because I was at the game, and this is what I have to say. So I had a great time over the weekend in Pittsburgh. It's a great town. Leading up to the game, we spent the day in the city on the main strip of bars, and we were able to find a spot. I mean, it was packed, of course, with everybody going to the game. So many Packer fans there. We'll get into that, of course, but they travel well. I mean, these are two of the best fan bases when it comes to traveling, and the Packers, of course, Packer fans made their voices heard at the at Heinz Field. I'm still calling it Heinz Field. I know it's Acrisure Stadium, but it's Heinz Field. The ketchup bottle was still there. I took a picture with the ketchup bottle. Of course, I had to do that after the game. But yeah, so we spent the day, my family and I, watching the games at one of the bars there. Um, Unfortunately, we had to watch Cam Skattebo get carted off as the Giants were taking on the Eagles, and that was tough. Skattebo has been a revelation for the Giants, him and Jackson Dart, so that was tough to watch. But we left to go to the stadium at around 6:30, and it was in the second half of the 4 o'clock games, so didn't really get a chance to watch 4 o'clock games in the second half in depth. But yeah, I mean, it was a great experience. It really was. The player introductions, Renegade in the second half, even though the Steelers were down at that point, didn't really fire the Steelers up, but they did have James Harrison come out of the tunnel before the game to fire the crowd up, so that was pretty cool. And I got to watch him go on a rant on his podcast with Joe Hayden, the former cornerback in the NFL, longtime Cleveland Brown, and then spent some time with the Steelers as well. So there was a lot of cool elements to the game, and also going to our seats. I mean, they had so much displayed out as you're walking to the escalators to go up, because we were in the 500s. We were on top of Mount Everest, but it was a great view of the stadium. But the great hall that they have there, they have all the jersey numbers of past players. They have all these different things, giant Lombardi trophies to represent their championships. They also had something going on where they had Ryan Shazier was there, and he was being interviewed prior to the game, so that was pretty cool to see that for a little bit. But we got to take a look from a view that wasn't where our seats were. We went up one of the tunnels and got to see the stadium, field level basically, and that was a great view. We saw T.J. Watt warming up, and Chris Boswell was out there. The players were warming up before the game. Wasn't a big fan of the uniforms for this game, especially the Steelers uniforms. I mean, the Packers were close to what they usually wear. It was their whiteout jerseys with the white pants, the white jersey, the white helmet. So that was fine. But the Steelers, the jerseys they were wearing, it looked like soccer jerseys. I would have much rather had their traditional Steeler jerseys, but that wasn't the case for this game. I would have rather had the Bumblebee jerseys, honestly. So yeah, so the view where we were field level, that was great. Took pictures, took some videos as well, and then we went up to our actual seats in the 500s on top of Mount Everest. And where we were, though, it was interesting because when the game started, where we were, I felt like I was losing my hearing because it just seemed like the crowd wasn't that loud. But I also think it had a lot to do with the fact that where we were, there were Packer fans everywhere in the 500s, everywhere. So obviously they're not going to be cheering for the Steelers defense when the defense is on the field. And the Steelers crowd got taken out of the game at certain points, and they were drowned out by the Go Pack Go chants. Those took over the stadium completely. Because, like I said, Packer fans travel well. And that proved to be true once again. But, yeah, so that was very interesting. So I think if we were obviously... Now, the tickets for... The cost of the ticket were a lot. And I got the cheapest tickets we could get possible. Still costed a lot. But if we were to be down field level, it would have been a lot more. But I like where we sat. You got a great angle of the field, and you could see, the city in the distance. It was really nice. It was really nice. But now to talk about the game itself, the Steelers. It was a tale of two halves, two different games. Steelers looked very good in the first half. They were in control of this game going into the half. Chris Boswell continues to be the best player on the team, or one of the best players on the team. I actually needed him to deliver in one of my fantasy matchups. It was a brutal week in one of my leagues because I had so many guys on bye. So I was starting players that I had to pick up, and some of it didn't really pan out. Although I did pick up Gatson from the Chargers. That panned out. He's looked like a stud the last couple weeks. But I needed Chris Boswell to get at least 9 or 10 points. And he did that within, he did that in the first quarter, basically. Kicked some 50-yard field goals, and I was good. And I was facing my friend who basically had the entire Cowboys offense. Dak Prescott, he had Javonte Williams, he had CeeDee Lamb, he had George Pickens, Brandon Aubrey. He also had Jake Ferguson, but he traded him. He did have Sutton in this game as well. Sutton didn't really do too much. But I was good because the Cowboys went up against the Broncos, and the Broncos have a good defense. Now, they didn't completely shut down the Cowboys' offense. That offense those players did get points for him. Now, the Cowboys did get blown out in the game, but in terms for fantasy, Pickens and CeeDee, they got some points. Javonte Williams had a couple of rushing touchdowns. And I actually was nervous because before the end of the first half, I thought Aubrey was going to be attempting a 70-yard field goal, and this guy can make field goals from anywhere. So I thought, that's not good. And then Dak Prescott threw a pick. So I lucked out on that. But yeah, Chris Boswell, he delivered for me in my fantasy matchup. The final score ended up being, I think, like 96-85 in our fantasy matchup. That's how bad it was. But again, it had to do with the fact that my friend has all Cowboys, and they were going up against a very good defense. And for me, I had so many guys on bye. I had Amon-Ra St. Brown on a bye. I had David Montgomery was on a bye. I had Devontae Adams, Kyron Williams, Zach Charbonnet. I had so many players on bye. Cooper Kupp, even though Cooper Kupp has not been great for fantasy, but I would much rather would have had him as my flex as opposed to what I had. So I had Rashid Shaheed, and then I ended up dropping him because I just didn't trust the Saints offense, and he ended up doing good. He had like 10 points. But I picked up Darnell Mooney because Drake London was out, so I'm like, all right, he's going to get a steady workload, right? Who saw that score happening in the Atlanta Miami game? The Dolphins blew out the Falcons, and Michael Penix didn't play due to an injury. Kirk Cousins got the start, and he was not good. He was not good. I feel like Kirk Cousins is going to get moved. I think he is going to get moved. And I saw a report that maybe the Vikings could reacquire him, possibly. Again, I don't know how true that is, but now when you have the injury to Carson Wentz, he's going to be out the rest of the year. He should have been taken out of that game on Thursday. I don't know why they left him in, because he was playing hurt, and the Vikings were not helping him out at all. He was getting sacked all over the place. I don't know why they didn't take him out, but they kept him in, and now he's going to be out for the rest of the year. So that could be something that happens. Kirk Cousins going back to Minnesota, because who knows what we're going to see out of J.J. McCarthy. He wasn't that impressive to start out the year. He's been out since week 2 with the high ankle sprain. Vikings got some problems with the quarterback position, and they're also dealing with some injuries on the offensive line. It's part of the reason why Wentz was getting sacked all over the place. But you know what? I can't help but think the Vikings made a mistake with how they handled their quarterback situation. I think they put a little bit of too much eggs in the J.J. McCarthy basket. And not to say that J.J. McCarthy is a complete bust and it's not going to work. Like, we still got to give this guy some time. I mean, he missed all of last year and he only played in 2 games. So you still got to give him some more wiggle room. But I do think that they should have tried to explore the possibility of bringing back Sam Darnold a little bit more. And I think they even could have brought Aaron Rodgers in. Because, look, I know Rodgers had a disappointing second half in the game against the Packers, but you're telling me Aaron Rodgers with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, Adam Thielen, T.J. Hawkinson, 2 running backs they have, that defense led by Brian Flores with Kevin O'Connell as the head coach. You're telling me Aaron Rodgers couldn't put up huge numbers? I think Justin Jefferson would love to have Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback right now. Because, I mean, Jefferson's not having a great season, but it's not his fault. It's not that he's been bad. It's just quarterback play's been bad. And, we're used to Justin Jefferson being able to put up monster numbers. I mean, he's had big games with Nick Mullins as a starting quarterback, but it's just, he's got 1 touchdown on the season, and it was in week 1. So I think, and I understand you bring in Aaron Rodgers. There's some baggage that comes along with it. I get it. But I think they should have did something. Now, they brought in Wentz, and Wentz is not a bad backup to have, but Wentz was definitely disappointing in his starts with the Vikings. He's turning the ball over constantly. It's just, it really didn't work. And usually, for the most part, quarterbacks thrive in this system. And Wentz had some good moments, but they were far and few between. But it's just, I mean, I guess really you're looking at the Bengals game, and then the comeback fell a little bit short against Pittsburgh, but that's really it. And also the comeback kind of fell short against the Eagles. They're playing from behind. The Bengals they really beat up on, but the defense had a couple of turnovers, and Wentz just, they just handed the ball off and let Jordan Mason run all over that defense. Yeah, it just it didn't work for him. But the other thing too is you could also say, and I forgot to mention this, Daniel Jones. Why didn't they bring Daniel Jones back? I mean, Daniel Jones, look at how he's thriving in Indianapolis. He probably thrive with Minnesota too, with their weapons. So, yeah, it kind of went way off topic with the Vikings, but that's kind of something to think about. But it's too late right now with some of the options. Now they could go out and address it. Like I said, only time will tell. But back to the Steelers game, as we went way off topic. It was a fun game. It was a fun game to be at. Now, I wish there was a little bit more drama at the end. It was a tale of 2 halves. The Steelers, they were in control in the first half, and then the Packers offense really started to get it going in the second half, and I thought Jordan Love played very well in the second half. I think the offensive line did a great job holding up against that Steelers pass rush, and Love was able to pick apart that secondary. And that's been a problem for the Steelers the last couple of weeks, is that secondary. Now they've gone out and addressed it. They traded for Kyle Duggar from the Patriots. Deshaun Elliott, who was injured earlier this year, came back, and then he gets hurt again in this game, so they lose him. That Steelers secondary is vulnerable, and the Packers secondary is vulnerable too. To open up the game, Rodgers hit Roman Wilson, who had a very good game on that deep pass, but the offense wasn't able to cash in and score a touchdown. It ended up settling for 3 with Boswell. Rodgers did hit DK Metcalf on a slant for their first touchdown of the game. The Steelers only had 2 touchdowns. One of them was to DK in the first half, and then one was late to cut the deficit to 10, 35-25, and they had to review it. Roman Wilson scored I believe that was his first NFL touchdown. But for the most part, everybody, it was Chris Boswell. It was Chris Boswell kicking field goals. Boswell ended up going 4 for 4 on field goals and 1 for 1 on extra points. The Steelers went for 2 on the Roman Wilson touchdown. Jonnu Smith should have caught it. He had it, but he ended up dropping it. He's got to hold on to that ball. And also DK Metcalf had another pass that I think he could have caught. It was kind of a tough catch, but he ended up dropping that. That could have been a touchdown. That could have been a big play in that game. But that led to a Boswell field goal. And Jaylen Warren did run the ball effectively in this game, but they kind of went away from it in the second half. Also, the officiating was not great. They missed an offsides penalty. Rodgers thought he had a free play. You see, I think it was Micah Parsons. He was clearly offsides as the ball snapped. And the officials meant to review it, but they ended up not doing anything about it. Also, the Steelers kind of shot themselves in the foot. DK Metcalf got charged with a 15-yard penalty. I think it was unnecessary. It was either unnecessary roughness or unsportsmanlike conduct. Either way, because he poked. Who was it? I think it was it Wyatt on the Packers in the eye. And instead of it being third and the Packers, instead of them picking up, getting close to a first down or picking up the first down, that's a 15-yard penalty that set them back, and then Rodgers ends up getting sacked. Micah Parsons, I think it was the play Micah Parsons, went past, 3 people to get to Rodgers. And I don't know if it was this play or a different play, but Parsons talked about it after the game that, he said that Rodgers, heard the crowd reacting, and that's why, because, Parsons is coming off on the edge on Rodgers' blind side, and Rodgers heard the reaction of the crowd, and that's why he started, getting out of that, because even though he didn't see Parsons. And Parsons had a funny line about that. And apparently Rodgers told him, to buy his house in Green Bay. Parsons is still looking for permanent residence to set him up. Since because he just got traded this offseason. Really right before the season started, he got traded. So, but yeah, Micah Parsons was wrecking havoc. The Packers defense got to Rodgers. The Steelers' defense did not get to Jordan Love. He didn't take any sacks. Now, there were times he got blasted. There was that one play, I think it was on third down, and Love gets rid of it, and somehow the ball hits Tucker Kraft. There was some, discussion over was that, offensive PI, defensive PI, that he pushed off, and they couldn't cover Tucker Kraft all night. They couldn't tackle him. The tackling in this game for the Steelers was really bad. But Tucker Kraft had a huge night through the air on National Tight Ends Day. He was a difference maker in this game. Josh Jacobs had another rushing touchdown. He bounced it to the outside for a touchdown. That was in the second half. Jordan Love made some really good throws. I mean, there was that throw to Christian Watson on third down, hitting him there. That was kind of an Aaron Rodgers-esque play. Also, again, it was also bad on the Steelers' secondary part as well. But Jordan Love made some good plays in this game, and that's very encouraging for the Packers going forward. And right now they're the number 1 seed in the NFC, and I'm waiting to see a little bit more out of the offense. And I do worry because I think the Packers kind of have this, similar problems to the Steelers defense, although, I think the Packers are the better team, where if the pass rush doesn't get home, their secondary is a problem too. That needs to be addressed. Now, they have an Xavier McKinney back there, but you got Keyshawn Nixon playing back there. And the Packer fans sitting behind me at the game were not happy with Keyshawn Nixon. So the Packers got to figure that out, the secondary. Maybe they got to make a move or something. We'll have to wait and see on that. But, both secondaries are issues for these teams. But the Packers pass rush, they were able to get home, whereas the Steelers defense wasn't. Now, you got Aaron Rodgers, who's 41 years old. Jordan Love is not that. I think he's going to be 27. So, Love can obviously move around. I mean, Rodgers could still move around too. It's just not like it used to be, obviously. So, but yeah, no, I've been waiting for the Packers to kind of, continue to take those steps forward. And I feel like this was a step forward, even though you could also say the Steelers just didn't adjust. And the defense just couldn't get home. But I think it was a step forward. I do. And I think a lot of that also you could say it has to do with getting guys back. Because this Packers offense, is missing some guys. Like they got Christian Watson back, But you're also missing Jaden Reed as well. Jaden Reed is an important part of this offense too. And, it's hard to rely on Matthew Golden. He's just getting his feet wet, as a rookie. So you're not expecting him to be a monster to start it off. I mean, also you could take a look at some other rookie receivers who have been good right away. Emeka Ibuka with the Bucks. But, for some guy, everybody's different. It takes time. So, right now the best pass catcher is Tucker Kraft. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Packers look when you get, now you got Watson back, you have Romeo Doubs, you have Matthew Golden. I know Dontavian Wicks is banged up, but he hasn't really been impactful. But then you get Jaden Reed back as well. All of a sudden you have all these guys back, you got all these different weapons with different skill sets, and this offense could really take off. Now, I've been waiting for this for the last couple of years, and I still don't think the Packers have like that alpha receiver, but one of these guys could turn into that. They're still all young. Matthew Golden is a rookie. And I think that, one of the best, arguably the best player on offense is Josh Jacobs. So Packers, they're a good team. They are a good team. Now, I don't want to put them in that same, category as some of the other teams that you could look at around the league. Like, I still would say the Rams are better. I think the Eagles are probably still better when they're at full strength. But the Packers are there, and they beat the Lions this year. I got to see what happens when they play each other again on Thanksgiving, which is coming up in about a month already. Can't believe that. The season just flies by. But they're a good team. They're going to be in the playoffs, and right now they have the number 1 seed. So I was impressed with what I saw from the Packers. I was impressed with Jordan Love, and let's see if that continues. But now on the other side with the Steelers, it's just, and it's funny, even going back to the airport, it's funny listening to all the Steeler fans talk about Mike Tomlin, and even on social media that, look, they love Mike Tomlin, but it's time for a change. Maybe it is, because the Steelers don't adjust. And from what I see, it has more to do with the defense that they run as opposed to the personnel. Now, that's not to say the personnel is not completely, exonerated, because, he did bring in Darius Slay, who's older. Jalen Ramsey's an older player. He's not the Jalen Ramsey that he was in 2017. That's a long time ago. Ben Roethlisberger got picked off 5 times in the regular season matchup against the Jaguars, and I don't know how many picks he had in that game. He's not the same player. And I also see posts that fans are missing Minkah Fitzpatrick, because you know what? Minkah Fitzpatrick held people accountable, and now you don't have that on that defensive side of the ball, and that's who they traded to get Jalen Ramsey. And I would have liked that Jalen Ramsey trade a lot better had they kept Minkah Fitzpatrick. And I know Minkah Fitzpatrick is not the same player he once was either, but he's still a leader. He was still a leader on that defense, and you took him away. And now they got to try to piece it together. And it's hard. Pass rush doesn't get home. That secondary gets picked apart. And there were a ton of guys running wide open. How many times in the flat you saw a guy running wide open, particularly Tucker Kraft, who had a couple of touchdowns. Right? It's a problem. And the defense is usually a strength. But it is not a strength. And if the Steelers' defense was average the last 2 weeks, the Steelers could be 6-1 right now. Right? If they were able to get to Flacco, if they were able to at least cover T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, not every single time, but they win more battles than the receivers do. It could be 6-1. Now, the offense did kind of stall in the second half. They got outscored 28-9 in the second half. And Rodgers didn't put up massive numbers. He threw for 219, 2 touchdowns, no picks. The Roman Wilson touchdown at the end, and like I said, they had to review it. He ended up being their leading receiver. It's just, everything has to be perfect. And it's not happening right now. They were up 16-7 at the half. At home. You would think that the Steelers would hold on and get the win, but that didn't happen. And like I said, Jordan Love was great. 29-37 for 360, 3 touchdowns, no picks. And at one point in the game, he threw for 20 straight completions. So that tells you, I think, more so problems with the Steelers' defense as opposed to Jordan Love being an all-time great. Now, Jordan Love is good, but I mean, 20 straight completions. I mean, there's got to be one incompletion in there. No. And the Packers, they only ran the ball for 94 yards. I mean, Jacobs only had 33 on the ground. Emmanuel Wilson actually had 61 yards on the ground, and he averaged 5.5 yards per carry. You know, he was getting work. And he also had some work in the receiving game as well. Tucker Kraft, though, 7 receptions for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns. Averaged 20.4 yards. Christian Watson averaged 21.2 yards. Romeo Doubs, 14.7. Malik Heath had 3 catches. He averaged 9.7 yards. That's not Steelers football. It's not Steelers football. And also in the first half, the Packers, you know, put together some drives, and Brandon McManus missed a couple field goals. So everything was going wrong for the Packers in the first half, but then everything went right in the second half. And everything went wrong for the Steelers in the second half. And the Steelers also turned the ball over as well. Kenneth Gainwell had a fumble late, which kind of put the nail in the coffin. I mean, there was still kind of a chance. Like, had the Steelers converted on that 2-point conversion, I know they didn't recover the onside kick, but all of a sudden you're like, all right, well, if they recover this, I mean, then they got to go down the field, score again, get the 2, and then all of a sudden it's a tie game. But Steeler fans filed out pretty quickly as the game got out of hand. And looking down at the stadium, like, it was hard to see because all the seats are yellow, but it was all green. It was all green. Steeler fans just bolted when the game got out of hand. But of course, we were staying the whole time. We were not leaving. I mean, there were some things that happened during the game that I'm not going to get into, but we were not. There was at no point were we leaving. We were staying the entire time. And again, shout out to the Packer fans that we sat in front of. It was fun. It was fun. The back and forth. I mean, it wasn't really any trash talk. It was more of just us watching the game, and they were yelling about the Packers in the first half and how bad they looked. But they also were from, you know, around the same area we're from. So, you know, we're talking some New York sports stuff as well. But yeah, no, it was an ugly loss for the Steelers, and it just doesn't get any easier for them. They got 2 very tough games coming up, and they could be looking at 4-5. And these are the kind of things that I was worried about with the Steelers coming into the season. Like, just keep stacking those wins, because I didn't know what to expect. But you know what? I think there's bigger problems. Like Rodgers, he has 16 touchdowns to 5 picks. He's got a quarterback rating of 104.4, or passer rating of 104.4, and he has almost 1,500 yards passing. He's had a good year. It's just the defense. The defense is a problem. I think they're 18th against the run, and then they're like bottom 3 against the pass. It's not good. That's not Steeler football. And James Harrison going off on his podcast about it. Like, they got to change something. They got to change something. I don't know what it is. I mean, again, they got to do something, because this can't keep happening. Steelers defense is usually a strength. The Steelers defense single-handedly can win the Steelers games at times. And for example, one of those games was against the Patriots this year with the fumbles. I mean, if the Patriots don't put the ball on the ground 5 times, they blow the Steelers out. But now you see these last couple games, no takeaways, and the Steelers don't win. And they also don't get to the quarterback. They got to Flacco, I think, once last week. But other than that, Flacco had all the time in the world to do whatever. But he got the ball out quickly. Hit Chase, hit T. Higgins, you know. Checks it down to Chase Brown. It's a problem. Now, is Kyle Duggar going to help? Well, we'll see. Got to get after the quarterback. And they are going to have a tough time these next 2 weeks against Daniel Jones and the Colts, who are 6-1 on the season. Right? They're 6-1 now. Are they 6-1 or 7-1? They are, 7-1. And then they go up against the Chargers, who are looking better as they get healthier. They got Joe Alt back. They're still waiting on Omari and Hampton to come back, but getting Joe Alt back is huge. Getting some guys back on defense, that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough. Like, at least the Colts game is at home, but you got to deal with Jonathan Taylor, who's been arguably the best player in the NFL this year. With that offense and those receivers that, they aren't household names, but they're pretty good. They're young receivers that got different skill sets. And you also got to deal with Tucker Kraft went off on you. Can you imagine what Tyler Warren is going to do? And then, again, Jonathan Taylor. It's been awesome. And they got an underrated defense. You got to be perfect. Got to be perfect. That's a tough game. And then you got the Chargers at SoFi. And you got to deal with Justin Herbert. And Ladd McConkey's starting to get it going. And Gadsden, the tight end, has been good these last couple weeks. You're going to have to deal with him. Kamani Vidal ran the football effectively against the Vikings. They're going to have their hands full. They could be looking at 4-5. Now, I still think this team is going to make the playoffs, but it's not a guarantee that they're going to win the division now. Not that it was a guarantee, but still, they were in the driver's seat. But now because you lost to the Bengals, now the Ravens picked up a win. Now, the Steelers are fortunate the Bengals lost to the Jets. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But I think the Ravens are going to reinsert themselves now because they won a game finally, and now you're getting Lamar Jackson back. They're not that far off the pace. So suddenly you're like, that comfortable division lead, you were 4-1, it's gone now. So the Steelers are going to have to make adjustments. They have to. And they're a team that is kind of so stuck in their ways, they need to adapt. But I don't know if they're going to do that. So they brought in Kyle Duggar, and they also bring in a familiar face to Aaron Rodgers. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is going to sign with the Steelers. I think I saw something that said they're holding off until the following week to sign him. But the Steelers kind of need help at receiver. Wouldn't surprise me if they go out and trade for one. I know Jacoby Myers has been linked to them. I still think they're going to end up with I feel like they're going to end up with Allen Lazard. And then all of a sudden you got Lazard, you got an MVS. Maybe you tell the Rams, hey, we'll give you a first for Devontae. They'll trade for Aaron Jones. And then all of a sudden, hey, look at... And I know and Mercedes Lewis is apparently going to sign with the Broncos. Why don't you bring Mercedes Lewis over? And you got him, you got Darnell Washington, Freiermuth, and Jonnu Smith. All of a sudden you got everybody. You got everybody. The gang's all here. With the old Packers crew with Rodgers. And then maybe get Randall Cobb to come out of retirement, But no, they need help. They need another receiver. I still think they need another receiver. And they do get MVS, but somebody else, Even if it's someone that Rodgers hasn't worked with. I know the Jaguars, there was some rumors of them maybe shopping Brian Thomas Jr. They said that's not happening. I don't know why they would do that. I think you got potentially something special with Brian Thomas Jr. And it looks like Travis Hunter is going to continue to be more involved with the offense. And before the bye week this past week, he had his best game at receiver against the Rams, even though they got blown out. But he did have a touchdown, and he had over 100 yards receiving. So, yeah, the Steelers, not going to hit the panic button just yet, but I have concerns. I have a lot of concerns with the Steelers. But to kind of put a bow on this game, had a lot of fun. Would love to go back to Pittsburgh in the future and it was very easy. Where I am, it was an hour flight. And then the hotel we stayed at, the stadium was like 20 minutes away, 20, 30 minutes away, around that. But I had it was a great experience, and looking forward to go back. So, kind of take a look at some of the other games. Obviously, the Giants ended up losing 38-20 to the Eagles. They continue that losing streak in Philly. They have not won in Philly since 2013, when Matt Barkley was the starting quarterback, and that continued. I didn't think the Giants were going to win. I did pick them to cover in the spreads, and it looked good for a little bit, but Eagles kind of dominated this game. Giants are banged up in the secondary. Jalen Hurts kind of picked them apart, and Saquon Barkley ran wild on them. He did leave briefly with did leave the rest of the game late in the second half with a groin injury, but the game was out of reach. They didn't really need him, so he should be good to go after the bye. But yeah, he had a couple of big runs. Did his thing against the Giants. Dallas Goedert made his presence felt on National Tight Ends Day, getting into the end zone. There was no A.J. Brown. Jahan Dotson had a long touchdown. Devontae Smith made plays. It's, I mean, the big blow is obviously Cam Skattebo, the ankle injury that he suffered, the horrific ankle injury. Dislocated it. Going to be out rest of the year. It's just unfortunate. Jackson Dart, the whole team was shaken up over this. He's provided an energy for this team that has not been felt for a long time. And to see that happen is unfortunate. It's a gut punch. It really is. So hopefully, he could bounce back and he's ready to go for next year. But yeah, just horrible. And it was a lot of people around the league, not even just Giant fans. A lot of fans around the league were not happy. Were upset over this because he just the kind of player he is. And he lays it all out there. Him and Dart, they lay it on the line for their team. And it's just unfortunate that happened. So, and Dart made some good plays, but it just wasn't going to happen. And I don't know why Darius Slayton is still on the Giants. That was a move that I questioned before the season. I mean, the Giants are pretty desperate at wide receiver, so I guess, and he's a veteran on the team. But the drops are still an issue. And then he had this long touchdown, but it gets called back for offensive PI because he pushed off. So it just, he's probably going to be gone at some point. But, yeah, no, not good. And the other thing, too, is everybody. The tush push continues to be the topic of conversation because the Eagles ran the play on fourth down. And Jalen Hurts fumbles the ball, and Kayvon Thibodeau ends up with the football, but they end up not granting the Giants the fumble. Eagles retain possession, and it's just the officiating was a problem this weekend, and that was one of the issues, and that's why you got people saying this is why it needs to be banned. And I think from that standpoint, it makes sense. Like, for me, I'm not a proponent for banning it because you got to be able to stop it. But if it's gonna cause this kind of controversy and it makes the officials' jobs harder and more difficult, then there's got to be a conversation. And I also, again, I brought this up also on a previous show. I don't know if it was, I probably did bring it up here, but also with GSMC. The silliness in the championship game where you had Frankie Louvu constantly jumping off sides. And then it got so bad that the official said we are going to award them an automatic score if it happens again. Like, that's where I have a problem with the tush push. Is for things like that. But, like, when they run it, when they run the play, if they got to pick up a fourth down and short, like, you got to stop it. So I don't know, but yeah, the Giants, they lose. They can't beat the Eagles in Philly. I don't know when the next time it's ever going to happen. Probably, I don't know when. I really don't. It's amazing that 2013 was the last time. But let's talk about the Jets. So they got a big win. I mean, it was not an easy win. All right. I mean, I thought the Bengals, they were going to run away with this thing. They were up by multiple scores. I mean, it was 24-10 at one point. It was 31-16 at one point. But the Jets, they ended up outscoring the Bengals in the fourth quarter, 23-7. And Justin Fields got the start. The Jets ran the ball for 254 yards in this game. Breece Hall had 2 rushing touchdowns, and he also had a passing touchdown to Mason Taylor. There was no Garrett Wilson in this game. They were relying on Tyler Johnson. They were relying on guys like Isaiah Williams. Isaiah Davis was their second leading receiver. the Jets somehow got the win. And good for the Jets, and it was a tough weekend for them as well. Not just, obviously they won the game, but in a different way. Longtime center and potentially future Hall of Famer Nick Mangold passed away over the weekend at the age of 41. He was dealing with some health issues, and unfortunately, that kind of led to him losing. Him ending up passing away at the age of 41. Was having some kidney problems, I believe, and that's been going on for a long time. And it unfortunately just led to this, and it's horrible. It's horrible. He's a guy that, again, if you grew up watching football in the 2010s, and especially if you were a Jet fan, and you think of the Jets in the 2010s, one of the names that comes up is Nick Mangold. He was in the same draft as DeBrickashaw Ferguson, and that the Jets had a pretty good tandem there on the offensive line, and obviously he was on the teams that went to the championship games, against the Colts and against the Steelers, with Rex Ryan. And it was tough to watch Rex Ryan on ESPN, talk about Nick Mangold. He was upset about it, and it's just it was very tough. So that win was for Nick Mangold. Aaron Glenn brought it up after the game, which I thought was nice, a nice gesture. But my condolences. My heart goes out to his family. It's very tough news on that front. He's gonna be missed. So from everywhere I heard that everything I heard about him, he was great to his teammates. Great to the fans, and that was tough news there for Nick Mangold. So. But the Jets did get the win for him, so there at least was that positive. But just tough news there. But yeah, the Jets picked up the win. Put up 39 points. How about that? 39 points with no Garrett Wilson, and they ran the heck out of the football. And that's what they got to continue to do. And they got to put Justin Fields in better situations. Like, he's not guaranteed to start, and Fields kind of opened up to the media talking about how he was crying during the week, how this has been kind of a tough year for him. He wants to do well. It's just hasn't worked out that way. And there are games the Jets could have won this year prior to Sunday's game. Against the Steelers, the Panthers game was definitely winnable. They had some opportunities there. The Bucks game, even the Dolphins game. Yeah, even the Dolphins game, you kind of say that, but, not really. I mean, the one game that you really look at and you're like, yeah, they had no chance was, well, even the Denver game was close. The one game that you could say they had no chance was the Bills game. That's it. Other than that, you could say, yeah, pretty much every other game you could have said, hey, they got a chance to win this. Unless I'm missing one. Yeah, the Dallas game. They didn't really have a chance in that either. But yeah, they could definitely have one or two more wins. And they're going into the bye. They're taking on the Browns the following week, who have quarterback issues. Maybe string some wins together. They got the Saints later on this year. Maybe you could get to 4 or 5 wins. Maybe. But that was definitely huge for the Jets, for Aaron Glenn, because everybody was talking about his job and how he could be one and done. This at least kind of holds off that notion for just a bit. Speaking of the Browns, they ended up losing 32-13. Myles Garrett had an unbelievable game. He had 5 sacks and 1 forced fumble, but it just wasn't enough. And he's frustrated with how the team has been. But listen, he said he wants to go somewhere else, and then the Browns opened up their briefcase with a bunch of cash, and he caved. So, he's kind of stuck. Dylan Gabriel, is pretty limited at what he can do. Quinshon Junkins got hurt in this game, so they didn't really run the football effectively. This game was pretty close. It was 9-7 after the first half, but then the Patriots outscored the Browns 23-6 in the second half, and they won 32-13. And they're 6-2 on the year. Patriots look really good. Drake May, 3 more touchdowns on the year. He's now got 15 touchdowns to 3 picks. The Patriots ran the ball for 177 yards. Kashawn Booty had a touchdown. Matt Collins was their leading receiver. Patriots look good. The Texans, back-to-back. Actually, no, not back-to-back. They picked up their 3rd victory of the season. They've won 3 of their last 4 games now. They went 26-15 over the 49ers with no Nico Collins. C.J. Stroud was pretty good. Over 300 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Xavier Hutchinson had a touchdown. Jaden Higgins had a touchdown in this game. And the Texans' defense is pretty good. So the Texans are kind of reinserting themselves back into the playoff conversation. Dolphins were all over the Falcons. We talked about that. 34-10. Kirk Cousins, yikes. 21-31, 173 yards. Yeah, they were playing from behind the whole game. Tua had 4 passing touchdowns in this game. Jalen Waddle had a good game as well. Yards short of 100 yards. Dolphins are 2-6. The Ravens, with Tyler Huntley at quarterback, they win 30-16 over the Bears. Derrick Henry, a couple of rushing touchdowns, and they get Lamar Jackson back. They're 2-5. Bears drop to 4-3. Ravens, they're not dead yet. Folks. Bills all over the Panthers. They bounced back. James Cook went off. 19 carries for 216 yards and 2 touchdowns. Josh Allen had 2 rushing touchdowns and a passing touchdown. Khalil Shakir, their leading receiver. Bills improved to 5-2. They play the Chiefs this week in Buffalo. Really looking forward to that. That's a huge game. And then I didn't bring up the Chargers-Vikings game, so we'll go back to Thursday night. I mean, they were all over. I mean, I talked about the Wentz injury, but yeah, they were all over the Vikings. They won 37-10. Herbert was efficient, 3 touchdowns. Monty Vidal had a good game. McConkey, Gadsden, the defense. They got to Wentz 5 times. Vikings are 3-4. Chargers are 5-3. You get this team healthy, they'll be back to how they were at the beginning of the year prior to losing 3 of 4. Well, they got the Titans coming up, who are one of the worst teams in football, so they should be able to win that game with ease. So then we go to the second half games. The Bucks, they win 23-3. It was kind of an ugly game. You had some different kind of touchdowns. Pick 6. There was also another defensive touchdown that I thought was going to be a defensive touchdown, but I think it ended up getting called back. But it led to Sean Tucker running the ball on 4th and goal. Actually, no, I don't think that. It might have been something different. Actually, no. Was it on? Oh, so actually Baker. So it was a fumble, I believe, that ended up not counting as a touchdown, and then the Bucks went for it, didn't get it. Well, Baker ended up getting sacked, losing the football. But yeah, it was kind of an ugly game. The offense struggled. The Bucks, they ran the. I really did not like how their play calling near the goal line. They they had like 4 chances and they could not score. They get down to the Saints 1. They run it with Rashad White. He doesn't get it. They run it with him again. Doesn't get it. They run it with him again. Then they bring in Sean Tucker, and he doesn't get it. I don't know why they didn't try to do a play action or something. Change it up. But, the Bucks, they outscored the Saints in the second half, 16-0. Tyler Shuck got put into the game for Spencer Rattler, so it looks like he's going to get the start next week against the Rams, or this upcoming week against the Rams. But, the Bucks, they get the bye week. They really need it because they're banged up. Baker's playing hurt. Maybe they get Chris Godwin back soon. So, yeah. But the offense has kind of been sputtering these last couple weeks. But they're 6-2. So, listen. And then maybe you get Bucky Irving back. They kind of need him back, too, as well. That would be a huge boost. And then also, you have the Colts. They were all over The Titans from start to finish, 38-14. Efficient day for Daniel Jones. Jonathan Taylor, 3 more touchdowns. He had 12 carries for 153 yards. It's ridiculous. Michael Pittman, a touchdown. Josh Downs, a touchdown. Like I said, Jonathan Taylor, 3rd touchdown of the game was a receiving touchdown. And then the Broncos all over the Cowboys. They win 44-24. We got to see Joe Milton for a little bit. He threw a touchdown. It was a very good throw. But yeah, no, Dak had a couple of interceptions in this game. They struggled running the football. Had a couple rushing touchdowns with Javonte Williams. No catches for Jake Ferguson on National Tight Ends Day. Cowboys defense is just, it's not good. It's a problem. It's a problem. It would be a problem even if Micah Parsons was on the team. They have to, they're going to have to address that in the offseason. But yeah, Bo Nix had 4 touchdowns. I mean, they ran the ball for 179 yards, the Broncos did. Dobbins had over 100 yards. R.J. Harvey had 3 touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, and a receiving touchdown as well. 2 touchdowns by Troy Franklin, touchdown by Pat Bryant. Broncos are 6-2. And then finally, Monday Night Football. There were like turnovers on like 3 of the 4 possessions to start the game. Interception by Mariota went off of Deebo Samuel's hands. Then Mahomes threw a pick. I don't know. There was one he threw later that went off of Kelsey's hands and got intercepted. Then the Commanders turned it over on downs. So yeah, it was interception, turnover on downs, interception, another turnover on downs, then touchdown. Chiefs put together a touchdown drive that led to Kareem Hunt scoring. And then the Commanders answered. This had to be reviewed, but Terry McLaurin was able to keep his feet in bounds. Mariota lofted it up to him right side of the end zone. McLaurin was able to get both feet in bounds to tie the game, and he ended up leaving the game with the quad injury, and now he's going to be out next week. He said it wasn't a big deal, but he's going to be held out of the game next week, so McLaurin just can't stay healthy. But the Chiefs, they took control of this game. I mean, they were up 28-7. 3 more touchdowns for Mahomes, 299 passing. Travis Kelce had a good game, 99 yards receiving and a touchdown. Rashee Rice continues to be impressive in his return, 93 receiving yards and a touchdown. And the Chiefs defense got to Marcus Mariota a couple times. Commanders folded 3-5. Chiefs are 5-3. They look really good. They're going to be taking on the Bills on Sunday. That's a Nance Romo vehicle. So that's pretty much it. That is pretty much it. Very good weekend in Pittsburgh. Jets win for Nick Mangold. Chiefs continue to dominate in recent weeks. Hope for a speedy recovery for Cam Skattebo. And that's pretty much it. So, everybody, as a reminder, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the video and to the channel. Make sure to follow us on the social media platforms in the description below. And wherever you get your podcasts, you can listen to us as well. Just look up Infinite Sports and you'll find us there. And as always, everybody, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off. Have a good one, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Take care.